I'm just
Yeah. There you go.
hello.
All right.
We're live.
Woo!
All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us at. How are we today?
Good. I'm good. I don't know about the participants.
Yeah, doing well. The weather is good today, so I'm happy.
Yeah, same
All right.
here.
So I feel like I'll show Shireen's first. Well, I'm sharing all of the flyers with everybody, so you can pull up every person's image. And so I guess we'll just get right to it. The first question of the day, how has COVID changed engineering as a whole, in your opinions?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can take that first. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm still a student, so I'm in my master's degree, which I started before COVID, thankfully. But for me, the main thing I think COVID has done this year is show me the importance of actually talking to people and asking for help. Because before that, throughout my undergraduate degree, like obviously, you work with your friends on problems or studying for exams or whatever. But in bigger things, especially career development or even self-development, I refuse to think that I need other people to succeed, but that's not how it works. Like we all help each other. So this year I had to, pack up and move back home. And then I also couldn't do quite a few things that were in plan for my master's degree. So in that sort of empty time and space that was created, I had to figure out how can I use it best. And what I've been doing is literally just reaching out to people and being like, hi, you're a cool person. Can I talk to you? And worst case scenario, they say no, right? But I think this time has been really valuable. One, for me to find role models in my industry because I'm quite new to it, which is aerospace engineering. And two, also just practice presenting myself to people. So I think that's been my biggest learning this year.
Thank you for that. And my biggest apologies for not introducing all of you appropriately. But that was Shireen Dada, who is a graduate student and researcher specializing in aerospace engineering. We also have Alvin Nadeem, an engineering project manager. And we've got Elliot, a software engineer at NASA. Hi.
Woo.
All right, so that question rolls to one of you guys.
Okay.
Do you want to go, Alvina?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I've been in the field for about 10 years now. And what I could say is, based on my experience, I've worked most of my life in the private sector, and now I'm in the public sector. So and immediately when I did that switch, I found a huge gap because the private sector is spending their own money. And so there's so much more technology and things are so much faster. And you need a new program, no problem, go buy it, no problem, right? So that's how fast it works. And I felt like when I came to the public sector, because it's public money, there's a lot of red tape. And so, just tools we had, for example, I don't know if you guys might know of SharePoint. It's a tool from Microsoft. Things like that weren't available, but it was always it's in the works, it's being planned, needs approval, blah blah blah. So you always knew that there, but we didn't know when we would really go live in terms of converting to a paperless type of environment. And that was one of the big goals of school boards of Quebec, basically. So it's interesting because this was already happening, but slowly, and just COVID kind of shoved them. There was no choice because then nothing will get done. So it pushed everything, all the red tape was cut. And so, we're online and we have everything online. So I feel like it helped accelerate some of those processes so that now we can work from home and now we know that it works. It's no longer will it work? We don't have time to question it, right? So we just did it. So we all just bit the bullet and jumped in. So for me, I feel like in some ways, it really pushed some industries to explore like the tools we have available, but there were some ifs and buts going on that were preventing, and kind of we were creating our own obstacles really to go paperless. And so in terms of jobs as well, I find that now there's more access to jobs because you're at home and you can kind of apply anywhere right now to test it out without having to move there first, right? So you could, like, I'm in Canada, I could apply for a job if I wanted all the way and say, hey, while we're in confinement and whatever in this type of situation or working from home, I could try it out. And if I really love it, only then do I decide to move if I want to. I don't have to worry about that right now. So that's another way of looking at it.
I can totally relate with the whole public and private sector differences because I literally experienced the same. And for me, like when COVID started, I was still in school. So not only like a lot of like school had to change and adapt and go remote, but also at the same time work was doing the same thing. But like you said, since it has a public and private sectors, things kind of flow differently. And not every company do allow their employees to work remote. Back until COVID started, I want to say that like it wasn't like remote work was only for a few group of people, and now it's like more open and there's more of a demand. And like you mentioned, you're able to apply to jobs in different regions. And I think that like the main thing that it's been challenging is just like a lot of the companies who were not adapt to go remote, they were just like kind of forced to go remote. So there is a lot more need and effort in communication between team, the teammates, and making sure that everything is flowing correctly. So I guess there's a lot more written, more written conversation and kind of trying to get a better feeling of what's going on, and a lot more remote meetings. And so far, I gotta say, it's been a very interesting transition. Not good nor bad, but like it's just been, still adjusting. A lot of industries are still learning, so just kind of got to go with the flow and see where it goes.
I hear you. To piggyback on something that each of you mentioned, I feel that with this transition into everything kind of remote, communication is key. So I know our students are, a lot of questions that they had were, how do you guys like communicate effectively, clearly? And then outside of that, like, how do you make friends if you start at a new place, but you're not really meeting them in person?
Ooh, I think I can start that because I actually started a new position, a new role at NASA during COVID. So for me, I was getting, although I have been working for NASA in a different center, I was transferred to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And my entire team, I never really met them in person yet. So it was like a lot of, I have to say, there's a lot more communication via Slack and emails. And I feel like it's important to ensure that everybody is in the same page, especially, because of the remote situation. But it's a lot more effort in terms of like communication and trying to ensure that, you're speaking clearly. And it's been good. It's very different than, of course, like being in person and having that like interaction, you get to bond more. But I feel like this is also an opportunity for us to go out of our comfort zone and, like go an extra mile and be like, hey, would you like to have a virtual coffee sometime? Or I especially now, I go on LinkedIn and I just message people. I'm like, hey, I'm very interested in your industry. I would love to, see if you're interested in grabbing a virtual coffee. I feel like right now, a lot more people are sitting at home and, in quarantine. So they're a lot more susceptible to meeting new people and, doing more virtual calls and stuff like that.
That's very
Have
true.
to agree. Very true. Yeah. To maybe add to that, so just to go back to the question, you said, what are some ways like to meet people? Is that just to make sure I don't lose track of the question itself?
Yeah, to like meet people, and also the importance of communicating effectively and clearly. Because, something might mean you might type something out in an email and it might sound a-okay, but then someone might take it the wrong way.
So that's interesting. Okay, so similar to Elliot, I've been on mat leave. So my situation has been kind of sheltered from like the COVID reality outside of home, because I'm in Canada and mat leave is like a year long here. So from June of 20, so I just got back to work, and it's the same kind of feeling as Elliot, where, I went back to work, but like physically I'm still home. The only thing I have to change is it's like a mental shift where like now I'm at work, so I got to focus on this and not my laundry, So for me, it's like I'm like delayed, where I'm living March right now, like the whole like working from home and like what do I do and all that stuff and how do I focus? So it's very fresh, but so what I wanted to say is that same thing for me. My team changed so much over the last year. The technology they're using, I left, a lot of stuff was still paper, and now it's paperless. So I have to learn all these new things. And what I'm finding that they're doing, and I'm getting more ideas from that too, is they're using Teams a lot, which is a Microsoft Office, like comes with Office, I guess. And so, for example, there are certain meetings our team used to have bi-monthly, like every 2 weeks. Now they have it weekly, just to create that kind of environment. And we try to, keep our cameras on as much as possible. I know sometimes there's a bandwidth issue and doesn't work and it glitches, but as much as possible, just so there's a, face to the voice, especially like if you're new and if you're speaking and sharing, like just make it a habit. It's about like creating new habits, really, because we've never experienced this, right? So be present in the most ways you can. So be visible, speak clearly, and instead of writing, maybe you can just call someone. So like, switch that, especially if it's someone you're speaking to the first time. So what I've been doing, because there's a lot of people that I'm talking to for the first time in my team, I usually just write to them and say, hey, can I call you for like 2 minutes? Just want to clarify something. That way I'm not just like typing and typing all day. I'm actually seeing their face one-on-one on Teams or whatever, Zoom or whatever else you're doing, just to kind of create, that chat you would have had in real life. You would have gone to that person's desk and be like, hey, and you would have had that FaceTime with them. So create that FaceTime, I guess, and like I guess challenge yourself to do it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I might add on to that from kind of, I guess, a school student's perspective, because I remember when I started my undergraduate degree, obviously, you have like societies and everything is in person. So your classes, your exams, your lectures, everything is in person. And then, you go up to like society and you're like, oh, I'm interested, in joining. Now, all of that is so different. So even though I'm halfway through my degree, I've transferred campuses. So I'm actually new to my campus this year. So I've had to kind of meet a whole new set of people. And at first I was kind of like, how do I even go about this? I'm literally staring at a screen and I see people's names and sometimes faces. So I think for maybe school students who are experiencing this, like going into college this year, or college students who might be, just going to the next year or a different campus, I think my biggest advice would be try and like get involved in things at a kind of influential level. So for example, I started as secretary of like a Society of Women Engineers chapter. Now, I wouldn't have even thought of doing that in normal times, because I'd be like, oh, I'll just chill, I'll take it slow for the first year, then I'll figure it out. But I was kind of like, I'm never going to end up doing that across the screen if I just leave it, right? I'll never go to the meetings, I'm just going to forget about it. So it's very scary, but I think it's been a good decision, because now I have to go to like our board meetings and I have to do these events, I have to send these emails, and in that way I meet a lot more people. So it's just been kind of done for me by my role, rather than me having to be like, hey, I'm new, you want to be friends? So I think that's what I would suggest.
Can I just add something? I feel like this is so interesting what you just experienced, because I feel like I was having this conversation with another person, and we were talking about how it almost feels like the opposite of what's happening, like literally. So in our literal lives, things feel kind of like flat right now, because we're all kind of on this weird plane, just hovering. But inside, like mindset wise, it's the opposite. It's like this awakening that's happening, because everything else is slow. So it's almost like our minds and our soul, or whatever you want to call it, has like time to kind of awaken, So like you said, you did something that usually you wouldn't have done, because you were like stuck in the usual life of spinning that same wheel over and over and doing the things, and now you're just like, it's so quiet that you're like compelled to act, So it's like there's like this awakening happening.
That's so
All
true.
right, so wait, go ahead, Elliot. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was gonna add something like just on what Alvina was saying before. It's not every work environment that will have the cameras on. So again, this is like very important that you go this extra mile and go out of your comfort zone. Like it happened, at least to me, where like I've been in meetings where everybody has like their cameras off, and I was like, okay, I know we're all in PJ, so we're all gonna be in like PJs together, but like let's turn the camera on, and it creates like this team culture. And I think it's very important, especially right now, because, like your peers, your teammates, they're all going through the same thing as you are. Nobody was expecting this to happen. Everybody's still adjusting to it. So just go that extra mile, and I promise you won't regret it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. But adding to all of that, so we hear adjustments and adjusting. How have all of you evolved during this?
Ooh, I have to say that at least for me, I had a lot of time to reflect on my goals, my life, and reprioritize things, and understand as well how I work best. And especially right now, because it's a new transition, in your work environment you might be pushed around, because things are just moving so quickly in some sense, and I think it's very important especially during this time, that you have for yourself to start working more on yourself, self-care. I realized that I wanted to do a lot more, things that would benefit my mental health. So I've been working out, in my backyard, with I don't have weights, so we improvise, get some gallons of milk,
I was gonna say, yeah, sacks of potatoes.
Right. I've been trying to work out, meditate more, and read, especially because I've been having a lot of time, for myself, I want to say. So I think it's very important to also utilize this time to invest on yourself. So I got to say that has been the biggest change for me, because I was so caught up on that routine, and I would always say oh, I don't have time. But in fact, when the truth is time is all I have, So I've just been now using this time more effectively and working more on myself.
I like it.
Yeah, kind of going off that, so I think one of the best things that has happened is I don't need to spend 2 hours commuting anymore. And while I was doing that, I didn't realize how much time was going out, because I'd be on a bus and it would always be crowded, so I couldn't exactly whack my laptop out and do some work, and also Wi-Fi was not great. But I'm kind of, now that I'm just sitting home and doing work all the time, this is probably a little bit contradictory to self-care, but I'm gonna give myself a break for that, because I'm still in grad school. So I feel self-care is I'll work up to it. But I have been able to use my time for things I actually want to do now. So before this, I'd have to like get ready and go out and get on the bus, and then there's traffic. So this year has been really important for me because I've been learning a lot, and it can get kind of overwhelming sometimes because I'm in a new field. I'm in grad school. There's so many new things that are just being thrown at me. But because I'm just kind of sitting home, I can schedule my day however I want around my classes and other meetings. So, whether I want to work out on like a Tuesday morning instead of doing classes, I can do that. Or if I want to do something else. So I found that I've gotten a lot more flexible. Obviously, this will end at some point once we're all kind of back after COVID. I don't know when that will happen, but I appreciate it for now. And I think I'll try to be as flexible even after this as much as I can.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like the common thread or the theme here is that the idea that like COVID kind of got rid of the noise from our lives, like the stuff that was filling it up, the stuff that was kind of sapping time away or whatever you want to see it as, or your energy away. Like I live in Canada and we get a lot of snow sometimes in the winter. So I remember like there was these winters like, oh my gosh, I used to be stuck in traffic one way, going for 2 hours. It's like 2 hours of just sitting on my butt. Like it was painful. Like you get off the car and you're like, I don't think I can move. and
Yeah.
so, like, so for me too, the traffic and all, but I had to, to be fair, when COVID hit and like everything stopped, the first thing that happened, I was kind of, at first I was like, yay, no school. It felt like a snow day, that kind of feeling. But then immediately after, it felt like, oh shoot, all my plans. Like, oh shoot, I had ideas for this and this and this. And like, when I'm do that, because my whole idea was that because I was on mat leave, my plan originally was to, my kids would go back to daycare, and then I was purposely taking 3 months for myself to work on projects that were unrelated to engineering, but like my coaching projects. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to work on my business, and we're going to make that to 5, and it's going to light me up, and that's going to be my thing. And so suddenly I was like, oh no, my 3 months, like I already extended my mat leave and I'm not being paid for these extra 3 months. So I immediately was like, oh shoot, what's going to happen? I took this extra time off. So it was, full of fear and stuff. And then I kind of like just over time kind of just let that go and focus on what I did have in front of me, which was time with my family, with my husband, myself, my 2 kids at home, like never before. We've never been home for this long. Like we've never had a staycation, if you want to call it that, for that long ever. Usually, even if you take a week off, you usually go somewhere else. But now it was really about like connecting with the kids. I mean, they're little kids, they're like 3.5 and 15 months old, but still it was like to be part of, like to see them growing in those last 6 months. This is something we wouldn't have had. So I feel like it allowed me to then kind of focus on what mattered, on like that stuff. And then now that they're my little one is sleeping and stuff, I was like, I got this, I guess it energized me in a way. And so now what I do is I do my coaching stuff at night and on weekends, like right now, like, so that it allowed me to like see that what I value and be creative about, and basically like finding that time, like Elliot was finding that time, making time for the things that I do love doing and that I do enjoy. So yeah, so it allowed me to see what matters more to me.
That's good. That's good. I do want to rewind and first run a poll for all of our viewers here. So I'm going to let me know if it like pops up on your screens. Okay. All right. And so while they're answering this question, which is, are you in high school, college, or officially adulting? Let's rewind and think back to when we were working our 9 to 5s or 6 to 8s or 24 hours around the clock. What was a day like in the life? Take your time.
Maybe I can start. This was pretty simple for me because before COVID happened, I was in my first year of the degree and I was only doing classes, so I wasn't doing like research or anything. So it was kind of just like, you know, go to lectures, come home, do your assignments, maybe go back to college for like group projects. This is pretty standard, but now it has changed a lot because one, everything's obviously online, and I'm like half the world away because I'm studying on like US time, whereas I'm in Ireland. So it's like self jet lag. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. But and I'm also doing research, so like any standard day now would just be like my calendar is just different colors of like meetings. So there's lectures, and then there's like research meetings, and then there's me doing homework, and then there's me doing like projects. So it definitely looks a lot different now than it did like 6 months ago or whenever when COVID happened.
Yeah, for me, it was depends on the season. But like I said, in the winter, it was getting ready super early, waking up at like 5:30. So my kids wake up really early, and then getting ready, getting in the car, getting there, getting stuck in traffic, good hour on a regular day, and for a good 2 hours on a snowy day, working 9 to 5. And then getting back stuck in traffic, and then coming home. Picking up the kids. Don't forget them at daycare. Picking up the kids, coming home, and then my husband and I are like freaking out, like figuring supper out, and then it was just so fast. It was like a hamster wheel life, and figuring out supper, and then when supper is done, hurry up, clean up, put kids to bed, bath, whatever, and then finally around maybe 8 o'clock or 7:30, 8 o'clock, we'd be like, okay, now what? But then we would be so pooped from the day that we just didn't we would just want to zone out on front of Netflix or something like that. So it was a hamster wheel. That's what it was.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that because everything was like such a routine, you know, and it was like waking up early, going to classes, and then going to work. So like a lot of things kind of changed, but it was, and also like, you know, now that there was like also the long commute too, and I feel like now it's so much better that, you know, things has changed, but in a good way, you know. I feel like as humans, like our biggest ability, and what I like to call it our superpower, is the ability to adapt to circumstances, you know. And I feel like no matter what, we can always find a way to adapt, you know. And I think it is important for us to keep this, you know, spirit.
Yeah, and knowing that, like, you know, to bounce off of that, it's that human beings and humanity as a whole, we're so resilient. Like, you know, look at history, we've gone through plagues and other like atrocious things and other pandemics, and we came out. But what's interesting is this time we have something very interesting, which is the internet. So we're kind of alone, but we're alone together, you know. So there's some unity in that and connection. So we connect on that fact that we're alone. We're all sitting at home right now and doing this from our homes, and that's it's like this, like the beauty in this is that you're alone, but you're not alone. You know, we're all living this.
I like how you said we're in this together, because it's literally how it is.
Yeah, seriously. We have a question actually that came in. It's for Elliot. Was it always a dream of yours to work for NASA?
That's a really good question. I have to say I always been passionate about space. And, you know, I always been so fascinated, but it wasn't until I was in college that I really, you know, like it opened my eyes. And, you know, what really got me to work at NASA was because NASA put a lot of data sets available out to the public, you know, and, you know, either that being, you know, geographic changes like wildfires, you know, NASA has all these APIs and open data. And it was during one of my classes that I really had to figure it out. Like, it was a data science class. I had to work with a data set, and I was like, you know, I'm been fascinated about space, so let me try this, you know. So I got a space data set from NASA, and that really opened my eyes. And I was like, you know, and that data set was actually a Kepler telescope data set, which was really cool because at the time I had no idea what an exoplanet was. So during that process of learning and like kind of building that project was when I really like, you know, discovered my true passion, you know, and I was like, whoa, I want to do this for a living, you know, and I felt that NASA was the perfect place to do it, you know, and I'm really thankful for the whole like experience I had so far. I have to say, like, working at NASA has, you know, made me grow not only as a professional, but as also an individual, you know, and, you know, they have this philosophy like failure is not an option. So you got to keep trying and innovating and thinking outside of the box. So it wasn't always like my dream, but, you know, throughout, I feel like throughout your life, your goals and dreams kind of start changing based off of the interactions and experiences you start getting. So, yeah, it's pretty much like it wasn't always my dream. I always was passionate about space, but now that I work for NASA, I just love it, you know.
Alvina, I would love to learn more about, I feel all of us would love to learn more about your passion and why why engineering and project management.
Okay, so it's funny. It's a great segue from Elliot, actually, because when I was little, I did want to work for NASA. I wanted to be an astronaut. And I actually, it's funny because when I was in high school, I graduated as salutatorian. And in my speech, I was like, I'm going to space. Like, that was my thing. And then, and I was, and still am very, very impressed and obsessed, you know, by space and like the universe and the idea that, you know, we're this little dot in this massive thing. And that actually, it's funny because when I was younger, I often used to like help myself solve things, or like whether there was emotion or whatever, because it allowed me to like put things in this different frame of reference, you know, so like kind of step out of myself and look at myself from this huge vast space of, you know, thinking of me as like, well, like the problem I'm feeling is really just a little thing, you know, it's just, you know, what is a problem? It's a thought. What's a thought? It's like electrons shooting at each other. And so like in the end, it's just like this minuscule thing that I'm turning into this big thing. But really, if I zoom out a little bit, like zoom out from another plane of reference, like looking at just like literally I would zoom out. I'd be like, okay, I live here. Zoom out, I live in this city, on this planet, blah, blah, blah. And there's just suddenly that problem crush that, you know? So I think it was so interesting how like this passion of mine with space and all this stuff led me to actually where I am today, coach. So yeah, that's where the engineering started, because I love space so much, and I wanted to you know, explore that. And so the university I went to in Canada, actually, in McGill, they didn't have a space program, but what they did have was you have to do a mechanical engineering bachelor's and then slap on aeronautical or aerospace concentration, which I did. It kind of scared me, the instability. So why I'm talking about that is because when I went to university, I paid for it myself. I worked my butt off in the summers and I paid for it myself. And I took out loans and whatever. Like I had to work for it, you know? So yeah. So like it's like it, you know, I can truly say like I am a self-made person, you know, because I wanted it. That's why I did it. I wasn't doing it for my mom or dad. Well, I was in a way because I wanted them to be proud, but in the sense that they didn't pay for it and they couldn't really. So my point is, when I came to Montreal and I was doing my studies and everything, by the time I was done my bachelor's, I already knew that I probably would not go into aerospace, but I still did my concentration because it was just, for me, it was a matter of principle and because I was passionate about it. The reason why I didn't go into aerospace was because at that time, and still now, Montreal has a big aerospace industry, but it's so volatile. Like they're like Bombardier is hiring, hiring, firing, hiring, firing, hiring. and they're getting bailouts and stuff like that. And that just like made me see it as an uncertain kind of unstable environment. And for me, going into that as an immigrant, coming out of the instability and all that stuff myself, not having anything, no dollar to my name except for my summer jobs, I was like, I cannot consciously go into this industry just yet. I'm going to go into something that's like solid. And I went into construction. But for me, that was a personal thing where I had to, I needed that stability. So that's why I ended up being in construction. But then I found passion there, and I realized that, I'm just a passionate person. So like, I was like, oh, I'm going to figure it out. And now I'm actually going towards coaching after 10 years of being in construction and doing project management and stuff like that. So yeah. So in the end, I realized what drove me to this university idea and like the space and all that, it was my curiosity. And in coaching, that's something you use a lot. Like, you have to be a curious person to want to know what's going on in your life. Let me get in, and explore, and just like, and bring in this kind of attitude of looking at the world, at yourself from this other perspective. And I feel like that's how I can bring that passion of mine and bring that kind of point of view to help people develop whatever it is that they're working on, whether it's their career or personal stuff. So yeah, that was a lot.
No worries at all. I know that we have Shireen, who's still kind of in the pre, like, actually in the world area esque. But what made aerospace engineering stick out to you?
Yeah, so I think I probably got interested in engineering a bit later. So I think when I was like maybe 14 or 15, it was kind of like, oh, I'm like good at math, good at physics. This is like a potential field, right? That kind of thing. But then in like 2012, so I have a very specific story. So in 2012, Curiosity landed on Mars, and I just happened to be watching the live stream. I think it was JPL, and the only thing, or a lot of things stand out from that, obviously, but the one thing that I always remember is like how happy and excited those engineers were. And I looked at that and I was like, I want to be that happy. So that's kind of where it started. But I think what has kept me going towards it. So I also did my undergraduate in mechanical. So, and it was very mechanical. Like, there was no sort of aerospace, anything connected to it. It just didn't have the opportunity. But what has kept me going towards that industry is like how challenging it is. And I know that might sound weird to say, but even if you get down to sort of the nitty gritty of the actual engineering or the actual science, I think anyone who works in that industry, and to be honest, in all of engineering, is challenged to perform at their best, because just sort of the sheer challenges of everything. So, even like getting a plane up in the air, even if we're not looking at kind of the space side of things, it's just very difficult. And I think if you're passionate about it and you keep going with it, you'll find yourself performing at levels that you never even imagined. So for me, coming from undergrad to my graduate degree, like when I first started it, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing here, right? I felt like I was a fake sort of, what is it called? Imposter syndrome. We all have that. And I still get that all the time because a lot of my peers, they've done undergrad they've done aerospace in their undergrad and at a US university. So I'm going to Georgia Tech. Whereas I'm coming from a different country, different background, knowing so little, I feel like. So, but that's kind of my end goal. Like, I want to see how much I can challenge myself. And in terms of like my global goals, I think both aviation, or I guess more space, can really be used to also better our lives on Earth, which I'm sure like Elliot and Alvina, you have a lot of knowledge about, but I think it's not just like, oh, we're all going to space, like bye Earth. I think Earth needs a lot of help, and I think going forward in this industry is really valuable to that.
Absolutely. It sounds like all of you were like, I see how something works. Now I want to know how it works and why it works and what makes it work, because I've heard challenge and passion from all of you. So I definitely, I admire you guys so much. I feel like I was cutting you guys off. I thought you guys were going to say something. Maybe that was my bad. No?
Oh, I can probably add just what Shireen was saying, in terms of like a lot of space technology also get utilized here on Earth, you know, to better our daily lives. And I think this is very, very, very important to emphasize, because a lot of people
don't get it.
they're somewhat like a misinformed, or you know, of these kind of things. And like a lot of the technology that we create to you know, sustain life in space or to go to space, you know, a lot of those things get like integrated in our daily lives, and a lot of people don't know that. And I can give you a couple examples, like the memory foam, the foam that is in your mattress. That was actually developed by NASA for seats of astronauts, because of like, you know, the G-force, you know, they needed better and comfortable seats. You know, if you like your kitchen pan, you know, like that black coil that sometimes some pans has, that was also actually developed by NASA for like the burn on the aircrafts, but it got applied in the kitchen pans. You know, our phones, the cameras of our phones were actually, you know, initially was designed was like to go to space. They were like, all right, so we have how can we like integrate like the smallest camera, you know, into the system, and the smart camera phone, like camera came to be, you know. Also, even text messaging, you know, text messaging images and money has evolved. Like the aspect of even of text messages has evolved, but the original technology, originally that technology was actually developed by a NASA engineer, because he was having a kid, and he wanted to take a picture and send it to his family of his child being like just being born. And you know, so like these technologies were technically for space, but we use it on our daily lives, and a lot of people take that for granted. So whenever people, you know, talk about you know, oh, I don't think my taxes should go to space, you know, like development, or you know, things like that, I feel like people need to just get more informed, you know, because like nowadays our communication, internet, you know, all these things that we use on our daily lives are all space technology or came from space technology. So it's very important.
Yeah, and it's so interesting what you're saying, because like I feel like the best like way to describe what's happening and why that happens, like what you're saying, that you know, how things get created for space but then get used here. It's very simple if you break it down. It's because when you're creating for another out of this world literally situation, you have no choice but to think outside of that box, right? And so it like you're thinking at a literally like a different like plane, because you have to, the rules are different. There are almost no rules if you want to look at it that way, you know, gravity and all that stuff, all the things that we're constrained by aren't there. So you need to create things, and you have other constraints, and so you're like thinking on a completely different problem solving level than we would be here. And so when we're like here in a little bubble trying to look at our, you know, little problems or whatever, it's interesting to say like, hey, you know what, the cross industry exchange is so important, to like take that back and see how can this industry help that other industry, how can, and I see it in my daily life too now, that I feel like being an engineer also opens up a little bit to that idea of cross industry like development and sharing. Because I think, you know, as engineers, like I feel like we all became engineers because some part of us help, and we're curious people, and we want to help the world become a better place in our own way, you know, and have some kind of impact. So I feel like that's really interesting what you're saying, the idea of realizing the impact of using the fact that you that group of people, those NASA engineers and aerospace engineers, are thinking at a different level. So let's actually look at how can we use what they're coming up with to help our lives become better today. And that should be the way we think, you know, instead of like, we don't need that, and that's, you know, yeah.
Absolutely.
Flip that around.
So we have one question for Alvina.
Ooh.
All right. let me broadcast this. Name a project that you were and or currently are excited to work on.
So a project that I was on that I was really super excited was a project back in I was in Newfoundland at one point because I was doing a lot of flying in and flying out. So it was when I was back in the private sector. Oh, we lost Martina. Okay, no, she's back.
Oh, she's back.
But so that project, it wasn't really about itself. I think it was. I mean, we were building a nickel plant. It was a large. Welcome back, Martina.
Hi.
So it was actually. I was a field engineer. It was my first project assignment actually, and the reason I guess maybe that's why it was the most exciting because it was the first time I was doing something so different. Like I graduated and then immediately had to leave and go to some other place and really out like it pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I feel like there's so much growth that happened there because it's such intense environments when you're on the field because your life is literally work because there's nothing else around. It's like a remote area, so it was like 12-hour days and it was like go 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 atmosphere, and I just was on the field hands on and just grew so much from it and learned so much from it. And I think one thing if I could share here is that I think it's so important to go into when you're especially like when you're graduating and you're going into the work field like and working with like let's say construction workers or people of the field, like skilled people, to make sure you come in really humble, and even if you have a degree and stuff, because I think that when you come in like that, people see you as an open person and they see that you're here to continue your growth and continue learning from them, and that you're not really there to kind of show off that I got a degree and like I'm an engineer, look at me, so because I've seen it happen on the field where there were some engineers that had just graduated coming up like with this really big attitude and didn't go well, because people on the field, let me tell you, construction workers, they're going to tell you like it is. So that can work for you, but that can also hurt you, so make it work for you. So yeah, so for me that was the most exciting experience because I really it immersed me so much into like that world, and it was fast and I grew a lot from it. So that's what I liked, being part of that. Yes,
I hear you. Even though my screen blacked out for some reason. We did have a few more people join us, so now, well, I don't have to say the number. Hi, everyone. Our next question is for Shireen. What is your dream job after grad school?
Okay, that's a difficult question. So I think, so what I used to do before coming to grad school is like every summer when I'd look for internships, I'd look for like aerospace related jobs that I knew I couldn't do yet, but I'd keep it in my sights. So I think my idea of dream job has changed quite a lot as I've learned more about the field. So right now I would say I want to work in systems engineering, but with a little bit of human factors. So for anyone that doesn't know what systems engineering is that you're not necessarily specialized in a very specific field like aerodynamics or like thermodynamics or anything, but you are trying to make sure that all of those things work well together. So if you look at something very simple like, okay, a plane isn't that simple, but let's just think of a plane. So there's the structures, which is the material and everything that you use to make sure it doesn't just sort of collapse in on itself. And then you've got thermodynamics. So like how is the power coming in? How is that interacting with everything else, your fuel, your engine, and then a lot of other things. And then you can also bring in like cost and like governmental policies and all of that. So as a systems engineer, depending on like what part of the business you're in, you're just trying to make sure that all of the systems you're responsible for are working well together. So I've learned a lot about this in basically the past few months, but personally, I really like it because I think you get to know a little bit about a lot of things, and you can kind of choose how technical you want to go or how technical you don't, depending on your job. So that's what I would be looking at like in the next few years, and preferably in the space industry. But I guess as Alvina said, I'm also an immigrant who's studying in the US. So that's a very difficult position to be in, but I'm hoping that I can kind of put myself out there as much as possible and just see how it works out.
All right.
I feel like it'll work out for you guys. So no need to be concerned about that. But we do have another question, which is actually something that I'm really curious about. Have you seen or made any rookie mistakes first starting out? Yeah, that's a hard one.
So I think I kind of mentioned this in maybe like an answer when we started, but I tried to do everything myself. So I'll elaborate a little bit more on that, but I cannot express how valuable it is to like talk to other people. So like I said, over the last few months, I've just kind of, whether it's on LinkedIn or email or anywhere, I'm kind of just messaging people. So if I see someone, I'm like, okay, I could see myself in that kind of role in a few years. Or if what they're doing is just really cool, I just message them and I'm like, hi, can I talk to you? And I made that mistake of not really reaching out to people for like basically my whole undergraduate degree, because I was like, why would they want to talk to me? You know, I mean, why would they waste their time? But people are curious about a lot more things than I feel like you think about. So even if you're a student who's trying to talk to, I don't know, like a managing director or something, they were also a student at one point. So there's no saying that them talking to you is a pure waste of their time. It's not. So I would say definitely, like, even if you're in high school right now, find people around you who you admire, who you're like, oh, maybe I'd want your job in like 10 years. Don't say that to them. But it's invaluable. Like, you learn so much, and you get to hear stories of people coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages, different childhoods. And I think that's so valuable in opening your own perspective on like what you can do and what's possible for you.
I guess like just to pick back off what you said, I feel like I also like kind of done that as well. So I feel like at times like you want to handle everything yourself, you know, or you might want to, you know, prove to somebody or even prove to yourself that you're capable of doing that. And sometimes like being afraid to ask questions, I feel like that was a big mistake that I have done, thinking that I could do everything on my own, but like when in fact, you know, this is a team collaboration, a team effort, you know, it takes more than one person. Someone may know the system or the thing better than you. So not being afraid to ask the right, like ask questions, you know, like, and, you know, I also, and also be very honest with what you know and what you don't know. I feel like it's very important. Sometimes like I get asked like very complex questions and I'm like, I don't know, but let's figure it out together kind of thing, you know? Because I feel like mistakes that I have done before is like in the engineering room, you know, especially like, at NASA, there's a lot of like, you know, internal slang kind of, kind of engineering terms. And, you know, at times I sat in a room and I'm like, okay, what are they talking about? What is, you know, PGEs? What is, you know, and I, you know, at times I just wanted to like sound very, you know, smart in a room. I'll be agreeing with something. But after a while, I stopped doing that. I was like, you know, there's nothing wrong with ask questions. What is that, you know? And I think it's important that you ask these questions, but also ask the right questions. You know, you want to be very direct, especially because you want to be respectful with the person's time, right? So not being afraid to ask questions, and yeah, I pretty much think that a lot of my mistakes was being afraid to you know, accept that, you know, I may not know this thing, or yeah, I just think that like it's very important for you to like determine what you know and what you don't know, and just be honest. You know, people are a lot more susceptible to explaining things in terms, and you know,
yeah, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's step one, right? Like if you can allow yourself to accept that I don't know this and it's okay, then you'll then be able to go to the next step, which is ask the question, right? Because you've already judged yourself. So then it's harder for you to then go above that and surmount that obstacle. But if you stop judging yourself, so that actually, it's interesting because what you guys are just describing, that's how I felt as well. But there was this one thing that was really big for me. So I think I could share that here right now. For me, it was about the image of success I had in my mind, and realizing that that image I used to have in my mind did not make sense. It was not fair. It was an image that I could never become, because it wasn't in my own image. So what I'm talking about is because I was on the field, the image of success I had of a successful leader on the field was, a large man who has a big voice and he's like commanding and like obnoxious to the point. But because what I was seeing was people were reacting positively in the sense that they listened, So for me, I was registering, oh, this is how it works. You gotta be a jackass to make things happen, But that wasn't me, and I'm not that kind of person, and it was not my energy. And so what it did in that moment was like, if that's success, what am I doing in this field? I'm not ever going to be that person. Like physically, I cannot turn into a large, bulky man, but also personality wise, that's just not me, like I'm not that person. And so in the beginning, it kind of broke me because I was like, oh man, I chose the wrong field, because I could never aspire to be in a leadership role, because that's what it takes to be a leader here, right? And so that's how I used to think, and it was so negative, and it just like broke me down a little bit. And then I guess working through different, like, having different projects and realizing my strengths and that kind of stuff really helped me. And I think what really helped was at one point at work, they made us all go through the Clifton Strengths, like Strength Finder test. I don't know if you guys have ever tried it, but it's really cool because the idea is, it like created a shift in my mind. It shifted me from thinking about weaknesses into focusing on strengths, because the idea of the Clifton Strengths is that there are, I think, 24 or 24 to 34 strengths or characteristics, let's call them that we all have, and that if they're just ordered differently in all of us. So now that I knew my top 5, and it was so true, because I really honestly answered that test in the most honest way, and I was like, wow, so this is who I am, and that's what I need to focus on. And it just like created this shift in my mind, where I started to then create an image of success in my own image. So instead of trying to be that guy, I was now creating an image of me as a successful person. So me in the future leading, what does that look like? Like asking those questions. If I was the leader, what would I do? Would I bark at people? No, I would invite them to talk. I would be this way so that they want to talk to me and then want to listen to me because I listen to them. So I realized that, it was about figuring out my leadership style, that it's a style that you discover. And so the idea is to create an image of success that's in your image, that's true to you, to your values, to what you're made of. And for sure, you're going to be successful, because if you focus on that, that's how you're going to be successful. And that was like my moment where I was like, that's what I got to do. I got to forget that stuff, So that's where I really had a shift. No, seriously, it was like a moment of like my brain just exploded. And I think that's also why I went into coaching, because it was such a massive shift in my head that I was like, whoa, I like doing this. I don't like commanding people. I like helping people. So that's what happened in my head. So yeah. If you have an image of a success, question, where is it coming from? If it's coming from an external source, then question that, really. So that's my message, is like, question it. Really think about it. Is it really me? Can I be that person? Is it someone else? Or is it really a future version of myself? If it's a future version of you, keep it, And if it's not, then create that new image in your own light. So yeah.
I think you're
I think you're on
muted.
mute. It sounded fun what you were saying, so.
You're still muted.
Yeah,
Yes,
why?
still.
I wonder why. Still muted.
Like,
No, you might maybe try rejoining. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe you have to kick yourself out. Oh wait.
Well,
Can you unmute yourself again? Oh, weird. What if you took out your headphones? Maybe it's a jack or something.
no.
No.
I don't think. Yeah, we
Okay.
still can't hear you, but
We
like
have three
just.
engineers here. Let's figure this out.
Well, also like on the top too, there is like the mic. I don't know if that's.
She's tried both of them. Okay, we're
Oh.
reading lips now. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so.
Okay.
Oh, I can't. Can you try rejoining? That might work. Or if you really want to say something, maybe type it in the chat, because I'm unfortunately very bad at reading lips.
Me too.
One moment.
One moment. I got that. I got that. One moment.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It's still loading for me. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
All right. Technology, guys. What I was saying to Alvina's statement was that was quite prolific, and so it made me even think of everything that I was doing, like pre-COVID versus now. But like with all of that happening, we've gone over our time. But I did want to ask each of you like one last question, if you wouldn't mind, if you have time.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So all of us kind of touched on the subject of, asking for what you want and like learning yourself. How important is that, especially right now? Different the world is and how different it will be moving forward. How important is it to ask for what you need or what you want?
It's like the number one thing. It should be number one. It should, honestly, COVID, the realization that it should always be number one, not just right now. But I hope that coming out of COVID, it will have transformed the way we think about our lives, and to keep that as the number one thing. What do I want? Figure out the rest. Make it fit in.
Yeah, I feel like especially with COVID, it's very important. And not be shy about it and not judge yourself. Give yourself, especially during COVID, I guess with the process of learning about myself, I realized it's also like giving myself the permission, to question these things, or like to giving myself the permission to, I feel like a lot of times we get like we are our worst enemies, and we kind of stopped ourselves to do the things that we want to do. So I challenge you guys to all of you to really, go above and beyond and like really get out of your comfort zone, because going out of your comfort zone is really what's going to make you grow and, as a professional and as an individual. So I think that it's very important for you not to be afraid and, not know that not every, like even experts, don't know a given thing, so like we're all humans here. So like, don't be afraid to ask questions, don't be afraid to like try to communicate effectively, and reiterate if you have to. It's very important. I feel like, especially right now.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, kind of similar to what both of you guys said, but so for me right now, the job market once I graduate. I'm sure it's the same for most people. Graduating isn't obviously as great as it would have been pre-COVID, especially if I want to stay in my field. So coming from like a pretty vulnerable place, what I found really important when you're reaching out to people and when you're asking for things is normalize talking about failures. So obviously if you're applying for a job, don't be like, oh, I failed an exam, right? I'm not saying that. But if you're talking to someone who could potentially be a mentor or who could try and direct you to other people who can get you an opportunity, you have to make it normal to talk about your failures. Like, I failed. I didn't do well in a couple of exams. I didn't do very well in this and that. But let them know how that has improved you, and let them know why you're better because of it. So I know how to navigate challenges a lot better now just because I have failed and I've come out of it. So when you do fail, don't let that kind of cocoon you back into your little box where you're like, oh, I failed, so I don't deserve to ask for anything. You always deserve to ask for things. And if you start talking more about what you've overcome, you will meet other people who have also failed and who are like, oh, you encouraged me to go forward and actually get the things I deserve, because failing once does not make you stop deserving better things.
Yeah. If I could
Can I
just
add
add
something?
something.
Oh. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So we're like, oh, good ideas. Just wanted to add to like thing that you mentioned about how right now, you know, it's not easy to maybe look for jobs and it's a bit more challenging. So just to kind of talk on that a little bit. So just wanted to present you with this idea of kind of, it goes back to like being kind to ourselves, and to also just know, like, you know, being kind to yourself and the idea that we're in this together, that we're all in this storm together. We're all maybe experiencing this storm, COVID, differently, but we're in it together. And what that also means is that globally, there's more compassion for all of these situations because everybody's in some kind of situation. So if you do end up having a big gap on your CV, and when you do apply, you're not going to be the only one in the world, literally. Like, a lot of people will be living this. And so when this new employer will look at your CV, they're not going to be like, what were you doing in that year? You know, they know it was the pandemic, everybody knows, right? So it has created this room for compassion from the employer towards the employee. And also you, the employee or future employee, just know that, like, if you don't find your dream job today, it's okay, because the context of the world is upside down right now. And no, please know that, like, any opportunity that you do get your hands on, it's okay for you to accept it, because in anything that you do, any action that you're taking, first of all, it shows that you took action, that you chose to get out and put yourself out there, you know? Even something as simple as deciding to work as a clerk at the grocery store, or a cashier, because you are still showing that you did something and you want to do something. It shows that desire in you, that I wanted to do something, right? And it's a stepping stone. And in any opportunity, in any kind of situation, you will learn something from it. You will grow from it. Like, I can give an example where when I was in school, I had a hard time getting internships because I did not have connections here. I was on my own. I didn't have an uncle working at Bombardier. I didn't have an uncle working for Bell or whatever. I didn't have those connections. So I had to really, like, you know, look for them. And at one point I had to just accept, like, dude, right now what I need is money, because I have to pay for school. If I don't go right now and accept the first thing that comes into my lap, I won't be able to pay for school. So that was my need, you know, coming back to the needs. And so I decided to accept, like, a job in, like, customer service. I was working for, like, AIG or something on the call center, you know? And honestly, I learned so much there about communication, because I was talking to different people all the time. So I had to adjust. And, like, whether it was, like, the technicality of speaking to somebody, like my tone, my cadence, and all that stuff, it like exposed me to this other side of life, you know, communication, that I didn't have and I would never get from engineering itself. So what I'm trying to say is, in any opportunity, you will find something if you choose to look at it from that lens of, I'm here to learn something. What can I learn from this experience? And yeah, so just, I feel like combining all these different ideas together, especially being kind to yourself, and knowing that it's okay to accept something that isn't your dream job right now, that you will bounce back, because when the world goes to normal, you will still be able to go get that, whatever it is that you're looking for. So that's my 2 cents.
Just to add something to both of you guys are saying. First of all, like, like I was saying that I've been reading a lot, but one of the things that Shireen was talking about, failures, that I just recently learned and I started implementing on my team. I was reading a chapter about Sarah Blakely, the CEO of Spanx. So pretty much like her father used to ask her and her brother on a dinner table every night, like, what did you guys fail today? And you know, I started doing that with my team because like I also like I have more interaction with my team now. And I literally initially they were like, wait, we're gonna be talking about our failures? Why we're gonna focus on the bad one, you know, like on the bad things, on what we failed today. And it's honestly very important for people to, you know, realize that there's like this social construct on failures, you know, and I feel that only celebrating your gifts, your talents is kind of doing a disgrace to you, because you know, failing means that you have tried something, you know, and you have learned, like you learn a lot from your failures, you know. So I think the only failure is when you give up, you know, and like as long as you're failing forward, I think that's like very important, you know. I think it's important to, you know, for you to accept that, you know, and talk about it, and know that like, okay, I failed today, but tomorrow I will do better, because you know, today I've learned something new that I didn't know yesterday, you know. And I think it's very important. And the second thing I wanted to add was like for recent graduates, you know, people who are job searching right now, I think, you know, although like the circumstances might be different, I think this is like an opportunity for you to like go out of your comfort zone and, you know, invest on something new that you know, been wanting to do it but never had the time to, you know, either that is writing more on a blog, or, you know, creating video content, or, you know, doing whatever it is. And I also think it's very important for people to know that, for example, how you were talking about, Alvina, about like, you know, working at the call center and all that stuff. It's important for you to also like know that it's okay for you to like take a step back. You know, sometimes in life we need to like kind of go back to the basics in order to like move up the ladder. You know, like move forward. You know, and I think it's important also how you view those those situations and the things that happens to you. You know, there's a lot of things that, you know, are out of your control. And, you know, I feel like a lot of people get caught up on that emotion, you know, like, this is, you know, this is not what I expected, or like, this is not the job that I wanted, you know. But if you always like look at it in that lenses, it will always be that for you. So I would say like always look at things as an opportunity for learning, you know, because like you said, like, you know, working in a call center, like taught you how to communicate more effectively, you know. So like you can learn a lot from all these different circumstances that happen to you. So always make sure that, you know, you act on the things that happens to you instead of reacting to the things that happen to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take the reins, you know.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely, like, I always go by the saying, like, whenever you fail at something, you've technically just learned the wrong way to do it. Like, so just, you can try and, like, what am I trying to say? When you first started walking, something as simple as that, like, walking didn't come naturally. You had to fall a few times. But then, like, those times you realize, okay, I shouldn't fall that way because I could potentially break my arm, or I shouldn't fall that way because I'd like tumble forward, and so on and so forth, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like you just learn how to do something. You learn how to not do something, if that made sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just like with this one thing, like I find that like for me, what I'm about to share with you is like my life slogan for myself, and that's how I look at life, and it's helped me move, you know, to the next stage, to the next whatever. And it's looking at the following thing. So it's the idea that struggle gives you a choice. Either be a victim of it, or that choice is something you choose. So if you actively choose to look at like, I'm gonna conquer this, your mind completely shifts and you start looking at what do I, instead of why. Why is this happening to me versus what can I do? See, like the choice, why puts you in a victim mode. When you say things like, why is this happening right now? Why am I like this? Why is it working? Why is they stick you in a hole, that statement. They're just statements. I don't like this person. Why do I not like this person? It's the same thing, but the why makes you think it's a question, but it's not. It's plugging you in that hole. But when you start using what questions, just formulating a what question for that same situation forces you to create options. So for example, relationship-wise, why does this person not like me can turn into, what can I do to make this relationship work? Whoa. You're not stuck in that anymore. Now you're looking for solutions. So think of what questions. If that's something that you can leave with here, just any type of why questions you have in your mind right now, create them into what questions, and you'll see just creating that what question just exposes you to all this potential of fixing the problem.
Absolutely. Shireen, I know it's getting late in Ireland, but we have one last question that's actually for you. And we have Vaughn, who's currently a grade 12 student, and would like to ask if you would choose between focusing on your career or attending seminars or webinars. Which would you choose? Because I know everyone's hearing about Google and how they're having that 6-month program, and there's programs like the Shaw Academy and Power MBA Global. So would you go through that, normal course or sort of webinars such as these?
Yeah, I was actually looking at this question. I was like, wow, this is really what I was asking like 4 years ago. So I would say you can do both to an extent. So when I was in high school, I now regret not spending more time just like Googling things I want to do, right? So there was a lot of pressure to do well in high school, which, I mean, you do need the good grades, etc. But if you're really passionate about something, or you want to find something that you're passionate about, I think it's worth making the time to find out more about it. So even while I was doing my undergrad degree in mechanical engineering, there were classes that I did not want to do, like heat transfer of radiators or whatever. I just wasn't into it, right? But I think I stressed a lot about like, okay, how am I going to get the A in this class? Like, I need to submit this now. I think I could have consciously made more time to just sit at my laptop and Google like exoplanets, like Elliot was saying, or something that I knew was more appealing than radiators. So I would say currently, if you're only focusing on your studies, definitely make the time. Even on weekends, and anytime, even if say you're eating, just be like, oh, I want to Google this thing I found out about yesterday. So definitely make time for it. And now I think as we're online, there's definitely a lot more webinars and things that are going on that you can attend, and you don't have to be in the country for, so like I've attended webinars that are from like Alaska. Like I would have never been able to go to Alaska in real life, so definitely make good use of that. And like you might get stressed out because you're like, oh, I'm watching this for an hour, I'm not working on assignment, but we all get stressed out. Like you'll figure it out,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Elliot, Alvina, would you like to add?
I was just gonna say, like kind of like what Shireen already said, like those kind of make the time, but like the question is, okay, well, how? Look at what does your week look like? So just a more practical advice here is to literally sit down if you want after this call and look at your week on a piece of paper and write down like, what do I do on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and when what can I substitute? Like let's say if you have an hour of like, I don't know, you're doing something for fun for yourself. Well, if you consider this fun, if you consider learning fun and doing this webinar fun, then you can maybe substitute whatever that you were doing as time for yourself with a webinar for that week, and then maybe explore from there. Maybe it's something you can do on the weekends, or are you a morning person or you're a night owl? Like if you're someone, like for me, I'm actually a night owl more, so I like doing these kind of things when everyone's asleep and I feel like this whole house belongs to me, whereas some people are the opposite. They like waking up super early before everybody just for that same vibe, and maybe you can put that in there. So just look at it from a practical view of like, what can I substitute, or where can I do this,
Yeah, I also just to add to that, if it is something that you're really interested and passionate about, I think that like the girls are saying, make the time for it, and I also think that there's always a sacrifice, for the things that you want. And I remember like when I was in college, I wanted to, be ahead of classes. I used to wake up every day at 4 a.m. to take online courses, and, I would, and this is like, it all take practice, it's not like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I used to wake up like every day at 4 on the dot, and at times I would, oversleep, but putting that mindset, where like, okay, how can I, find the time to do this? And I also would, like Alvina was saying, look at your calendar and, look at what you spend your time the most. If you can spend, 3 hours on social media, I'm pretty sure you can spend 1 hour less on it, and dedicate that 1 hour into like something that you're really interested in, like either that being a course, a tutorial, whatever that is, and I think you have to take charge of, your education and your career path, and, really, try to take control of the situation. And it's like Alvina was saying, what can I do to make this happen, and not like, why can't I do this, or why why don't I attend this? Just make the effort, just go out and out of the box and out of the routine that you get always stuck into, and sometimes you're going to discover that like, what the new thing that you just got yourself into is going to be like maybe like a new passion, a new hobby. You're going to discover more about yourself. So give yourself the permission to do those things, and even if it has, to come at some level of sacrifice,
Yeah. And give yourself time to get used to this. It's like forming a new habit, right? It takes some time. So know that maybe the first week you might go up and down. Maybe the first day you'll be really excited. Then the next week you might be like, this is annoying because it's taking up some time, but keep pushing yourself to do it. And eventually it becomes a habit, just like any other habit.
Practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say, right? Well, thank you all for taking the time out of your Saturdays to join our panel today and answer all these questions. But I know we've gone over, so I want to let you guys loose, let you free. I know Shireen is probably going to bed.
Thank you, Shireen, for staying up late.
No, it's only 3 p.m. on the time zone that I'm working on, so not go to bed yet.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. Thank you all again. And I will be sending you guys the links for the recording of our panel. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. If there's any like sign off or sign outage you guys would like to do or say, please feel free. Like if you have one quote or something that stuck with you that you want to share with our viewers.
Yeah, I think it's just what I said earlier. It's like struggle gives you a choice, be a victim or be a conqueror. So I'm asking you, be a conqueror.
I would say like the sky's not the limit. So like, just go out of your comfort zone, and, you're going to discover that, going out of your comfort zone, you're going to grow and you're going to learn new things. So don't be afraid of it, just embrace it.
Yeah, pretty much similar. Don't be afraid of failure, because it's hard to say that when you have failed, but eventually it'll work out. And don't be afraid of asking for help, because we, like all of us, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for people who have somehow helped us along the way. So don't think you can do everything yourself.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you guys. All right. Farewell. Until next
Good luck. Have fun.